And welcome back to the NFLandU podcast, everybody. It's Friday, October 30th, Halloween Eve. Oh, it's spooky season. I'm your host, as always, Hayden Vassar, and I am here with the happiest Cardinals fan on the face of this planet, Mark Hogan. Mark, how you doing today, my man?
Well, am I happy? That's the problem, Hayden. My Falcons have just played in that Thursday night preview. So am I happy? Have I picked them even? We're going to find out on this episode. But those guys have been breaking my heart for so long that even when one child, the Arizona Cardinals, going to win in the weekend, I have to worry about the Atlanta Falcons losing.
Mark just can't catch a break, can he? He just can't catch a break.
Oh, the Falcons, forget about it. The Falcons can't catch a break. My God, what I know I kind of ranted on about it on my power rankings this week, but that pushed me over the edge of like enjoying Atlanta and be like, oh, they're just on the cusp. They're like, God, they can't get it out of the way. That what Todd Gurley did. I've listened to so much analysis. My God, I can't get away from it. I've consumed more Atlanta Falcons breakdowns than the Cardinals beating Seahawks in the last few days. But I know momentum and all like this. I know it's in my blood that I get across the goal line, says every running back that's been analyzing that play. But there's just smart football in Atlanta. They're not doing it right now. So thank God that Thursday night game is out of the way. We can look forward to some good stuff this weekend.
I just like this full turn that Mark has finally done on the Falcons after being their hero for so long. He is just done with them now.
I said that 3 weeks ago. I said that 3 weeks ago as well, and look where that got me.
All right, so excluding the Thursday night game that Mark just talked about, we are here to preview all the games of Week 8, including a bunch of great games. And Mark, why don't you get us started? Where would you like to go first on our Week 8 preview, my man?
Yeah, do you know, there's one team that I still can be excited about. I suppose it's the battle of two of our favorite quarterbacks now at this point. I'm going to bring you to the AFC West, 2-2-4 teams, the Chargers against Denver. And so we're super high, obviously, on this whole Justin Herbert train, as we were the whole Drew Lock thing. So these guys are going to be meeting for the first time. Within that division in a battle that we expect is going to be, going on for a few years, hopefully now, because they're finally franchise quarterbacks out in that division. So I thought it would be interesting almost to look at how impressive Herbert has been these past few games and compare him to Drew Lock, who obviously we were excited with when he came in, week 12 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how good is Herbert? Through his 5 games, he's thrown for 500 more yards. He is 1,500 versus 1,000 of Drew Lock. And you can say whatever, like Denver has rebuilt since then, but it's like Justin Herbert has 12 touchdowns versus Drew Lock's 7 in that time. There's 110.8 pass rating so far this season versus 92.4.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like on the deep ball this year, Herbert's 10 for 26 with 6 touchdowns on balls with, air yards more than 20 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That was 6 touchdowns tied with Russell Wilson. Against the blitz, his pass rating is 137.4. On third down, he's the best in the NFL, 138.2 passer rating. And the Chargers 4th in third down conversion since Justin Herbert came in. So it's like I went down this rabbit hole of wanting to compare where these are going in the future. And it just got me super excited for, even though they're only 2-4 and they're probably out of it for the season now. I just think that there's so much. And geez, what else can I say about Herbert? He's 121 rushing yards as well to go with all those numbers. He's been so exciting. And I mean, I just think that the way that they're playing right now is just so like eye-catching, and he's doing against good teams. And we set it up last week that they finally had a game that Herbert can go and win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think he gets a second one here. I just can't look for it. When you start looking into the numbers, Herbert has just been so super impressive, even versus his quarterback that we like in Drew Lock. Like, Herbert is just an absolute star.
Yeah, you're right. And it was something that I thought of watching them play over this past week. I'm like, my God, Herbert looks so much better than he did in college at Oregon. And the stats back that up. His yards per attempt, for example, is more than he had in his junior and senior years in Oregon. So he's playing literally light years ahead of what he was in Oregon, and it's showing on the field. It's just, Mark, I fully respect your take of the Chargers should win, and to me this is a coin flip. But I tried to help Broncos fans out on Twitter the other day and said it's not time to pack up shop just yet, guys. You could still rally. So I'm gonna stick with supporting them. I'm gonna take the Broncos in this one.
Oh man, wow.
I like
Exciting.
Herbert though. I really like Herbert. Like, no
You
disrespect.
know our love for the Broncos. Obviously, we can't be on them as on that train like we were at the beginning of the year. That I'm still super excited about them. But
Hmm.
Herbert, I feel like I've been coming around to more and more as the episodes go on.
Oh yeah.
And like even in the red zone, they've come away with 10 touchdowns and 15 trips since he became the starter and stuff like this. That I just think he's been so positive for that team that it doesn't matter what running back turnover there's been over the last 12 months or whatever. It's just super exciting. And I just realized that I picked against those Broncos who we are super excited about. But it's when I started looking into Herbert's numbers so far this year, geez, he's phenomenal. Like
Hmm.
I know we've talked about him on the show as being good, but he was just when you look at the numbers, he was better than I had even anticipated.
Yeah, he's impressing more and more every weekend, and it's something that I think Chargers fans should be very excited about. Even if the season doesn't go well, you guys have a franchise quarterback, and you should be very happy about it. Okay, so we split there. A little interesting, and I'm okay with that.
Off the top, coming in with a split. I always like it. I wasn't sure where we going to be getting it off. I didn't do it intentionally bringing in that game, but it's definitely now one that we can. I'm going to be tracking for the rest of this.
All right, why don't we go to a game that I'm coining era of new beginnings, Mark, and that's the 5-2 Los Angeles Rams going to Miami to take on the 3-3 Dolphins, who have won two in a row. And I say new beginnings because it's two a time in Miami. Is finally time. Is two a time, baby. And that's baby with like 15 Y's. The rookie that we've all waited for is finally making his first start for the Dolphins after their bye week. And Miami fans have every right to be excited because this is what all the hard work of last year was waiting for, the debut of their franchise quarterback. Now, here's an interesting tidbit for you, Mark. This one came from the Miami Herald the other day, a newspaper down in Miami. Chan Gailey, the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins, who has coached for 16 years in the league, old guy, 68 now, he turned 69 in January. He has coached Hall of Famers like Troy Aikman, John Elway, and future Hall of Famer Ryan Fitzmagic. He has never, in his 16 years, coached a rookie quarterback making his first start in a game. Never, ever. So it's a Sunday of first for the Dolphins. First all the way around. And here's the thing about the Dolphins. They've proven to be very frisky over the last 2 weeks with blowout wins over the Jets and the 49ers. They're proven that you shouldn't overlook them, that they'll give you trouble. And that's why the move to put Tua in was kind of surprising, at least to me. I know we didn't talk about it when it happened, but the Dolphins weren't stinking up the joint. They weren't playing bad. So the move to take Fitzmagic out of the lineup came at least a little shock to me. But according to Chan Gailey, the offensive coordinator, they're expecting Tua to come in and really not miss a beat. They expect him to go in and really make the throws that they expected Ryan to make as well. They expect nothing to really change except, the fact that he's left-handed. And and if you don't know anything about quarterbacks, lefties are a very rare breed. In fact, this will be the first time since January 3rd of 2016, the last game of the regular season that year, Dallas versus Washington, when a left-handed quarterback made a start in a game. This is very rare. We don't get these very often. So what I'm saying is you need to watch it and enjoy it because we don't get lefties to play very often. Now, all this era of good feelings is fine and all, and Miami fans have every right to be excited. But here's a problem. Aaron freaking Donald and the Rams are coming to town. The guy who, leads the league in sacks? No, he doesn't lead the league in sacks. He's second in the league with sacks. I don't know why I said lead the league in sacks. But Aaron Donald's coming to town, and he is going to make life hell for this poor young quarterback who is making his first start. Remember, making his first start since that horrific leg injury in Alabama. And this is his reward for all his hard work. He gets Aaron Donald thrown at his face. The Rams are coming off that monstrous win on Monday night over the Bears where they dominated in all three phases. Defense, I know I've talked about Donald a lot in this segment. Offense played really well. And guess what? Their punting game was out of freaking control. Johnny Hecker was a damn weapon. He had 3 punts land inside the 10-yard line. And that's something I really want to focus on because that's an absolute nightmare for any young quarterback making his first start is to constantly be backed up into his own end zone. Here's the thing, Mark. It's this era of good feelings. It's all a party down in Miami. Everybody's in euphoria because Tua's coming into play. I have a feeling that party's going to be ended abruptly when the Rams come in and put the hurt on this young quarterback. I don't care what the Dolphins have to do. I don't care if they have to hold. I don't care if they have to trip. I don't care if they have to throw a banana peel at his feet to stop him and slow him down. Do not let Aaron Donald touch this rookie quarterback under no circumstances. I'm taking the Rams to win, and let's see what the rookie's got. I'm excited to watch him play.
Yeah, it's great, obviously, that they can be so excited, Hayden, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really beautiful, the picture that you painted there of, you know, a nice time in Miami, because it is, you'd imagine, going to come back down to earth. We didn't talk about it last week, the whole, because Miami was obviously on the play. It makes sense that Tua was put in. That's why he's been put into this game, is because they had it, you know, earmarked or whatever themselves. But like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I've had what, 10 days now to mull it over, probably 2 weeks at this point to mull over that they've bench Fitzmagic, and not being a Fitzmagic homer or anything like that. He was playing well. Like, for God's sake, you're in this crazy division right now. We'll talk about it some more later, but like, not that they had serious aspirations of winning that division, but like, they were still within touching distance, you know, and
they were very much still in the hunt for this division. That's why it's all the more shocking.
Especially with their schedule, you know, that they get the easier one. And I know they obviously want to go with Tua, and they want to start, you know, getting them some meaningful reps and building for the future. But yeah, look, they didn't obviously think that they were going to win a Super Bowl with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So it is, you have to be smart at the same time. You have to think long term. But I just think there was an energy already there that why did you need to kick up some excitement, like you said there, by bringing in Tua? And I know it must have been hard in Miami, you know, the likes of the Herald writing about how you need to get Tua into the game, but it still doesn't make sense to me going up against someone as ferocious and Donald. And yeah, look, I'm not going to write Miami off or anything. We've made that mistake too many times this year with a couple of bogey teams. But yeah, I'll be picking the Rams as well, and it almost served them right down there. Don't care who's been coaching for however long in the year and who your first rookie quarterback is. Not throw them to the wolves like that. For God's sake, have a heart.
Mark's seeing old man Chan Gailey up in that box. Like, I don't care if this is your first time.
We're Wade Phillips fans on this show. All right. That's the Herald.
Amen to that. Okay. So that's Miami at the Rams, and we're both taking the Rams for that one. Mark, where would you like to take us next, my friend?
Yeah, you know, because I started us off with one that kind of threw me for a loop, but why don't we go to another one where I can't really decide where it's going to go? Indianapolis versus the Detroit Lions.
Oh yeah, let's get it.
This is a tough one to pick, Hayden. I think that Detroit is coming into this off a win that they didn't deserve, but the kind of win that can kickstart a season, strangely enough, with obviously how I previewed it with speaking about Atlanta, that, you know, those kind of strange like wins that you don't deserve sometimes kickstart, you know, good runs and stuff like that. And we talked last week how they're in a slump and how I was kind of attributing it to Matt Stafford, that he was still a bit groggy after coming off that injury. And then he goes and proves me wrong with that game-winning drive that he led, that at the end of the day, he still had to go and win the game when they got the ball back after Todd Gurley's mistake. And they went and did that. Now, they, with their record 3-3, all of a sudden are still in the hunt for a playoff spot. They could certainly get into that number 7 seed. And that's why they go and trade for Everson Griffin, who won't be playing this weekend. But it's to help a unit that was weak. They're 5th in sacks at the moment, are the Lions. And that plays to their disadvantage, you'd imagine, going against Indianapolis, who has a good O-line. And the best way to get the offense shaken up is to get after Phillip Rivers. He is so stiff, and you have to force him into mistakes by getting pressure. And I just don't think that this Lions unit is going to, you know, get that kind of pressure to really force those mistakes. But, you know, my admiration for the Colts now throughout this year. But one thing I haven't been able to put my finger on is, like, when Phillip Rivers came in, he was supposed to really give this offense a jolt. And I thought he was in the beginning of the year, but like T.Y. Hilton hasn't returned the kind of like form that we expected. He was banged up throughout 2019. And we thought like, he'd be showing some stuff from now. Like, when you look into it, he doesn't have those explosive plays, but that's going to come when you're an older player at this point, you know. he still leads the league, or sorry, leads the team with 242 yards on 20 receptions. Like, it's a good yards per carry, 12.1, but he still doesn't have a touchdown. He still doesn't have one of those big plays. And it's like, that's the explosiveness that I think Indianapolis is missing. That will really drive home to me, like, yeah, this is a good team. This is to scare you, because I even feel like I think they're 12th in my power rankings right now, and it's a bit of a gray area that they seem to be too high for me. But I should have probably had them below the Browns, who are a spot below the Colts, because it's this gray area. These teams are quite scary, but they'll beat any of the non-top 12 teams, if that makes sense. But I don't know, do I believe it for the Colts yet? Because even though I think their defense is class, I'm just still not sold on that offense, which I thought I was, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But we need to see the likes of T.Y. Hilton having some explosive plays. We need to see him getting touchdowns, and then they can become scary, I think, again.
So let me ask you this question, Mark. And this is more not just, and I'm not trying to phrase this as like an insult to the Colts, but like, do you think it's more like they have the ability to be explosive and that they just aren't clicking right now, or that they lack that ability to be explosive, if that makes sense? Like, they just can't do it.
No, I think they certainly can.
Okay.
I thought that Philip Rivers was the quarterback to do it, and I'm still high on him. I'm not going to jump ship on that yet. Like, he has the ability, but the way they're having the scheme for T.Y. Hilton, maybe I didn't account for his age, that he was like, he is one of those like deep threat, receivers that has like monster plays and all like this. That now that he hasn't had them, that's kind of something that I thought or took for granted is probably a better way of putting it. I took it for granted that was going to come with Indianapolis this year.
Right.
And that's an element that I think if that started happening, they would look like a bigger threat. But when you just look at, box scores and all like that, which we hate to do, they lack that bit of, that jolt that will really get them that national attention. You don't see them coming up in like the top 5 plays on red zone.
Right.
And you don't see the players coming up on fantasy right now, other than obviously the running back Jonathan Taylor. That it actually makes this game pretty tough to pick, especially like I said, that Detroit team coming with a bit of a pep in their step really now. It's a game, these never show up on our graphics unless you listen to the podcast. You don't understand their hesitancy that I'm going to go with this, but like this one is an absolute toss for me.
Wait, hang on. You cut out literally right as you said the team you were going to pick. So now I'm even more suspense. Like,
look at my Twitter for the answer. No, it's my God, isn't that funny that I was so nondescript from my team? But no, it's the Colts that I'm going with. That I just think that, not that Detroit played poorly or whatever the other day. I kind of just have to go with that. They're going to go back to that kind of non-complete team that we were kind of seeing, like this stop-start team. Whereas I don't think they have the presence there and the pass rush to get to Philip Rivers, and he might be able to get to work really. So that's why I'm signing with Indianapolis. But in case of cut out, I just want to put it on record that I haven't a clue really, because it's such a tight game and it could go either way with the momentum that Detroit is going to come in with now.
Much like the Denver game we previewed earlier, I also view this as a coin flip, and that this is probably one of the 3 games I struggled the most with picking. And I'm riding with the Colts as well, but Mark eloquently pointed it there. The Colts are lacking on offense. Not that they don't have talent, it's just like we need to see more from it for them to be taken seriously. If I'm telling you, 160-yard touchdown bomb to T.Y. Hilton, we'll all shut up about it, I promise you. But we just need to see it. That's all Mark's trying to say. But yeah, we're both taking the Colts on this one, but I wouldn't be stunned if the Lions stole it in Detroit. I really wouldn't be.
No, and like I said there, as an NFC fan, a Cardinals fan, that you're looking at the playoffs, Detroit's thereabouts, surprisingly, and they can certainly get in a run now. It's that time of the season that people are going to have to step up, and Detroit could be a good one to do it.
All right, so that's the Indianapolis and Detroit game. And Mark, I want to stick in the AFC East for this next game. And I said there were 3 games that I genuinely struggled to pick with, and this was the game that gave me the most anxiety trying to pick, because I'm talking about the 2-4 New England Patriots, who have lost, count them, 3 in a row, going to Buffalo to take on the 5-2 Bills. And Mark, I am genuinely 100% concerned about the Patriots right now. This is all looking very bad. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this game could decide the future of the AFC East, at least for this season. Hear me out on this one. There is a lot of pressure on this Patriots team right now, both internally and externally. You got Cam Newton has not looked good these last 2 weeks. It's been downright awful. And as much as I respect Cam for getting in front of, the media and taking full responsibility for it, he's got to step up and start playing better. Now, I will admit that not all of it is Cam's fault. This entire Patriots offense really isn't playing well. The O-line really wasn't blocking well in their last game. Julian Edelman is arguably their best wide receiver, and he is very much showing his old age. You're getting no help from your tight ends at all. And it's all kind of coalescing into this awful offensive experience for the Patriots. And in the last couple of years, they could have overcame that. And, they could have massaged those concerns and somehow churned out a solid playoff run. But just watching them play now, I don't get that vibe from them at all. In fact, the exact quote that Cam told the reporters that when he got benched for Jared Stidham in this past game against the Niners, he apparently told himself, you keep playing like this, it's going to be a permanent benching. So he knows the pressure is on. And at least Bill Belichick came out this week and defended his quarterback. He said, Cam's the best player at that position and we're riding with him. So at least he still got his head coach's backing. But if Cam goes out there and stinks up the joint for a third straight game in a division that's already starting to get out of hand for the Patriots, this is not going to go well. Now, I'm sitting here ragging on the Patriots, and deservedly so. They're 2-4 right now. The Bills haven't necessarily played great the last couple of weeks either, Mark. I mean, the first 4 weeks of the season, we were all singing their praises. Oh, their offense is great. They're phenomenal on third down. They were averaging 30.7 points per game. And they were one of the best third down offenses in the league, converting on 51%. They were good on offense. Then the next 3 games happened, the last 3 weeks, with losses to the Chiefs, the Titans, and a very questionable win against the Jets where they did not score a single touchdown against the Jets. It's mind-boggling to watch this Bills offense. It was like that little thing on Wheel of Fortune, the little yodeler. It's going up the hill, and then it just dropped off the face of the cliff. They went from averaging 30.7 points a game to these last 3 weeks averaging 17 points per game. The last 2 weeks, specifically the last 2 games against Kansas City and the Jets, they've averaged 35% on third down. This offense has just dried up completely. And I'm not really sure what's responsible for it. I thought it was, okay, they're playing better competition in the Chiefs and the Titans, but then they played a Jets defense that really doesn't have a lot going for it, and they still struggled to get results. So this game is kind of something's got to give. The Patriots are in desperate need of the win. The Bills are looking to prove that they're the new big dog in the AFC East and are trying to get their offense back on track. So something's got to give in this one, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Please.
Sorry. I thought you were throwing it to me there, but the point I was going to make, Hayden, is, and it's something that I said on my power rankings this week, that the AFC East is about as threatening right now to any playoff contender as the NFC East, because who you look like the Bills have looked crap now against the likes of the Titans and Kansas City. They should have. And we talked at length at the beginning of the season about how we were looking forward to this stretch and seeing how Buffalo did. And then to come against the Jets, which I must say, watching the game, I wasn't surprised that the Jets were able to, play well against them, because, like I said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago when the Jets were playing against Miami, it's so difficult to go 0-16 that the Jets will have to beat someone, and the person that they're most likely going to do it to is the likes of the Bills, who are, even when the Patriots were good last year, the Dolphins can always get a win over them. That there's something within the AFC East that those teams can beat one another. But they just all those teams look horrendous right now. And that's why when I was mentioning Miami, it's like, well, your division isn't that good. And look, we do expect it to pick up. It has been a bit of a slump for the Patriots, but they played well against the Las Vegas Raiders, but since then they just haven't shown up. Well, look, actually, no, sorry. You should remember that they had that good spell against the Kansas City Chiefs, and then it was losing the quarterbacks that really cost them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The Broncos we put down to just a well schemed Vic Fangio game. Sorry, I know I'm mismatching between the Buffalo Bills and the Patriots here, but I just think that they're not a threat right now. This is just to sum up what I'm saying. They're not a threat, those teams, and someone needs a spark. But like, it's just this thing that this is what we've been saying about the Bills. It's like when the going gets tough, they get going, and yeah, it makes it obviously a crucial game this week.
Mhm.
I know that you're saying it decides the future of the division. Well, who knows? Because the way that these are playing, like they could easily just start losing games against other
Oh yeah,
teams. Like it
they
really
could.
is like the NFC East. But just I checked Football Outsiders there. The Bills have 4 wins in this matchup since the year 2000,
Oh Jesus Christ!
which is magnificent. Like,
It's
my
like the
God,
Browns
that's
stat I threw out a couple weeks ago. Jesus
right. It's
Christ!
tough to do. Like, my God, I didn't know that there's so many teams struggling in these kind of rivalries. But yeah, like they should get it. But I just think they're really struggling. And Bill Belichick is an absolute like wizard when it comes to in after me saying about Miami, but in these matchups that I'm riding with Bill Belichick in this one. I know he's had some bad games, but we said last week, how often does he go on like big losing streaks? If this one, my God, this could be huge. Like you're seeing that Stephon Gilmore is on the trade block and stuff
Yes, I
like
was
this.
going to
Like
mention that. Yeah,
this is
it's
absolutely huge, and it's a real unraveling from New England. So yeah, I'm riding with New England. We're getting some tough games this week.
yeah.
Hey, these are tough ones to take.
Yeah, like Mark just mentioned the word, you don't imagine Bill Belichick on losing streaks, and he's absolutely right. If the Patriots were to lose this game against the Bills, they would have lost 4 straight games. The last time that happened for the Patriots was 2002 when they lost 4 straight under Belichick from weeks 4 to 8. They were able to rebound, and they ended up being 9-7 and barely missed out on the playoffs. But that was Bill Belichick's only season where he had Tom Brady as his quarterback where he didn't win at least 10 games. And I was just sitting there looking at those numbers. I'm like, my God, could we really be staring down the Patriots losing 4 in a row? If the Pats lose this game, I really think it's time to panic. It'll be the first time that they've started 2-5 since Bill Belichick's first season in 2000, and they ended that season at 5-11. I'm not saying that they're going to be a 5-win team at the end of the year. I'm not saying that at all. But I think our expectations of, oh, this team could easily be back in the third seed of the AFC. I think we got to re-register those thoughts a bit. If they lose this game, there'll be 3 games back from the Bills, who will be firmly in the driver's seat. But like Mark said, they could easily just start losing games left and right. This division is so hard to talk about right now. My gut and my heart is screaming for me to take the Patriots in this one, but I'm taking the Bills.
Oh, geez, we are mixing up our picks this
Yeah.
week. You could take a 16-game lead on me if this continues. No, sorry, 16 in this week. We're changing it. What, we've won the same so far, two the same so far. This is remarkable. But
I yeah, oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, they're close games, and again, like they are tough to pick. I
Yeah.
mean, if the Bills are playing someone else, I'd probably pick against them. That's how poor they're playing right now.
Yeah, for real.
And sorry, I did pick against them, so it doesn't even register.
Uh
New England, I don't know why I can put so much faith in Bill Belichick, other than, funny enough, ironic if you want to call it that. Kyle Shanahan had a banged up team last week that shouldn't have been doing too well.
mhm.
And we've seen how the 49ers have been able to coach them up. And Bill Belichick, I mean, he's been the master of this for years. This is obviously a depleted team that he's been dealing with, and it was well talked about going into the season about how depleted this roster was, and everyone just put it on his shoulders. Oh, Bill Belichick will get it done, what he's not. And this is the kind of statement game that you need to do. Just a funny note on it. This is Buffalo going into this game favorites. I don't have a number of games since that's happened, but you'd imagine that Buffalo hasn't gone in favorites against the Patriots in a long, long time. So to
Oh
be
yeah.
given 4 points is, it's kind of a big statement there by the bookies, thinking that, Bills are going to go win this division.
Yeah, like Mark said, this is tough stuff in this division right now. It is not at all what we were thinking it was looking like 4 weeks ago. We were actually kind of excited for this kind of matchup, and now it's like, oh God, this is pick suicide at this point, picking either one of these teams.
Yeah, and not that the fans deserve it or whatever, but the Patriots fans must be in absolute limbo, not knowing what this kind of normal person life is like to have to go through a bad patch. And yeah, Buffalo fans have definitely come back down to earth that they could definitely, for their own sanity, go back on a winning streak because I don't think they're prepared for the Twitter backlash when their team continues to lose.
Mark's just enjoying the AFC East on fire right now. He's just soaking in all the smoke and he's just having a great time.
Massively, yeah. This is why I want to be on a podcast. I've been biding my time for so long. Jesus, I talked about biding my time. I knew this time was coming, so I'm excited.
All right, so that's the Buffalo New England game. I think one of the bigger marquee matchups on the weekend, Buffalo New England, and we're splitting, and that's okay because I am supremely not confident in my pick at all. But I don't know why, but I forced myself to do it. So, Mark, where would you like to take us next?
Yeah, we're through 4 games right now, and we've been all over the place. I think there's a natural transition here that will kind of solid this ship a little bit, but it's talking about Tom Brady, former New England
Well done.
quarterback, obviously, because it is just night and day, and it was why Tom Brady wanted to go to another team was to prove himself, and that it wasn't all Belichick scheming that he was relying on, and people were writing off, talking that he's gotten too old. He looked absolutely phenomenal there the other day. What I saw, there was a one stat, 16.1% probability that he makes that touchdown, that 33-yard touchdown to Scotty Miller, that he is playing at this exceptionally high level. They had an explosion against the Raiders the last day, scoring 45 points. He had 8.2 yards per throw, or sorry, per attempt, which, Ryan Tannehill leads the league right now with 8.9. So when Brady's at 8.2, it's like now he's getting the whole Antonio Brown thing. Obviously, that kick in from next week, from week 9 or whatever we expect. That, yeah, I just think it's phenomenal how he's able to pull it out of the bag. And I think we need to give him the dues, because we would have quickly written him off and said that he was too old. I know we didn't do it on our podcast, but a lot of fans are. And I'm just putting my hand up, and I think you would join me, Hayden, that we are still Tom Brady believers, and we weren't ever part of that narrative that he has gotten too old. He still is phenomenal. And last week he showed just why. And they kind of get a week off here playing against the Giants, who I don't think would be up to the standard Monday night as well. Like, may I add that as a Cardinals fan who has now had 2 primetime games in a row, it sucks to have your team on primetime. God, you're waiting all day, all weekend sometimes when it's these Monday night games for your team to come around and to just play. But yeah, the Bucs back on primetime, and actually, as are the Giants. Geez, they played on Thursday Night Football, and now they're going to be on the Monday night game. They've had a really long break. They've had a week and a half.
Yeah.
That I'd expect Tampa Bay to win this. They're just in flying form right now, and yeah, that extra day and all this. That I just one of the best teams in the NFL. Just not come out of nowhere. But wow, did that happen fast?
Yeah, that's what we kept saying for weeks, is that once they get all on the same page, look out, they're going to start knocking people's teeth out, and they are living up to the hype that people put on them in the offseason. This Tampa Bay team looks good. And, even without Chris Godwin, who had surgery on, I think it was one of his thumbs this past week, he's going to be out for this game. I think the Bucs will be just fine on offense. They're going to come in and roll, and it's just too much for the Giants to do right now. When your leading runner is your quarterback, that's not good. And if I remember correctly, Daniel Jones is the leading rusher for all quarterbacks in the league, surprisingly, which is a crazy stat to say in 2020. But I'm taking the not the Giants. Oh God, no! I'm taking the Buccaneers to win this game.
We must take your first answer. I'm sorry.
No, don't lock me in. No,
I've just sorry. You said lock me in.
I said don't lock me in. Don't lock me in.
All we heard, there was a glitch. We heard lock you in. Sorry. No. So Hayden has also gone for his lock of the week.
No, no, don't lock me into that. Please please let me take the Bucs, please.
No, funny enough, I went checking the anchor page where you can find all of our podcasts, obviously. And once upon a time, it had said, "Are you looking for a podcast that covers the Dallas Cowboys just as much as the Tampa Bay Bucs?" And it was surprisingly gone. The first time I actually went to check that bio in particular, it's now been changed to Mark and Hayden put out the podcast or whatever. And I was disappointed because I was going to actually point out, I was like, Hayden, like, what's so impressive about talking about these Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We just completely ignored the New York Giants.
When you're that bad, we're just going to ignore you, okay? No, I'm just kidding. It's just that this is one of those games that where it looks pretty lopsided, and we all aren't going to sit here and be stunned when Daniel Jones gets sacked for the 6th time in the for the game in the fourth quarter, and he's fumbled for the second time in the game, and the Giants have put up a grand total of 13 points to Tampa Bay's 35. Like, it's just not fair right now. Tampa Bay has finally clicked. They finally turned the page. I feel like we can anoint them the praise that we were hesitant to do a while ago. They're here and they're ready to fight for their division. It's showtime for them. And for the Giants, it's just not. No offense, Big Blue. I feel like your year is going to be next year, though. I'm really excited to see what you do next season. It's just not your year this year. And that's okay. That's okay. Are we all good on that one, Mark?
No, yeah. I'm sorry. I was letting you transition out of I came back into my thoughts.
Why don't we stay in the NFC East and get this other garbage game out of the way? Because the 2-5 Cowboys, who have lost 2 in a row, in case you haven't heard, are going to Philadelphia to take on the 2-4-1 Eagles. And as of this moment, as of the recording of this is scheduled for Sunday Night Football, but I have a gut feeling it's going to get flexed out because nobody's trying to watch this garbage. Mark, this is just god-awful football what's going on in Dallas. They traded Everson Griffin the other day to Detroit. They cut Dontari Poe and another player earlier on Wednesday because they tried to trade those guys and couldn't get anything back for them. Dallas is starting to fold up the tents and pack it in because they already know where this season is going. And it's going south fast. In fact, I would come in and argue that Dallas is actually the worst team in that division. It is that bad in Dallas. Especially if, and this is where it looks like it's going, we're going to get rookie Ben DiNucci from James Madison University starting his first game. Mark laughed because he knows this is going to be worse than he thought.
I laughed, Hayden, because it's funny when, was it the Cardinals game that it cut to Ben DiNucci on the sideline and he messaged me saying that, are they preparing to put Ben DiNucci in? Yeah. And I had to go Google him. Then I realized, it's like, wait, why would they be putting that guy in? He's clearly not prepared for an NFL game. Yeah. And here we are 1 week later. And Andy Dalton's concussion obviously has him perhaps in the game. And I'll let you back onto this game in a second. I just kind of want to raise the question, though, as you being a Dallas fan. Is this all because Dak Prescott's out? Or was this team destined to kind of struggle anyway?
I really feel like this team was going to struggle no matter who their quarterback was. That Dak being in there really covered up a lot of holes. I mean, we saw how bad they were when Dak was in there. That defense couldn't stop anybody. He was having to throw 5 touchdowns and 500 yards a game just to keep him in it. So you factor in all of that and you take away a franchise caliber quarterback, and now you truly see how horrifically bad this team really is. And that I really feel like, I know Jerry Jones went on radio in Dallas this week and got very angry when Sean Sharif of 105.3 The Fan asked him, does this team have a leadership problem? And that meaning, is there a lack of leadership? And Jerry Jones got very defensive and very angry about that question. But I think they do lack leadership. There is no part of that team that is getting up there and trying to rally the troops as they're getting blown out for the 5th week in a row. I mean, you let Washington blow you out. One of the worst offenses in the entire league. You made Kyle Allen look like Patrick Mahomes. If that doesn't embarrass you and get the fire stoked, nothing will. I truly feel like this team's given up. I really do. Like, I see no fight in their eyes at all. They've packed it in. They don't care anymore. I'm taking the Eagles by at least 28 points. It's that bad in Dallas.
Yeah, look, the point that you make there about Everson Griffin going, just the writing was certainly on the wall at that point that they've packed it in for the season. This is a guy that they obviously got in the offseason to help the team, and they're just saying, no, we'll take the cap saving for next year, which could be a good thing long term. Smart play. To talk about Philadelphia for a second, even after that excellent Dallas promo, but just because Philadelphia is the highest at number 17 in my power rankings from this division, it is kind of messy. There's such good and bad. I mean, you have Wentz making some clutch plays, and at the end of the day, they came back in Thursday Night Football and they got the couple of touchdowns that they needed, and he's doing it behind the banged up O-line, which is definitely more severely banged up than a lot around the NFL. I would say it's the worst O-line in terms of injuries, but at the same time, he's like, the frustration that goes through Eagles fans, must be awful when he causes those turnovers, because some of them are just nonsensical, especially for someone that we're all saying, oh, he's touching on the interceptions that he didn't go near last year, and we were kind of like teasing it at the beginning of the year, and we're like, hold on now, this is a problem. And I don't know, it speaks to some kind of regression. flip it then to Doug Peterson, who, yeah, you have to hand it to him. He instills such fight in his teams. But the bad is his play calling the other day. My brother's an Eagles fan, and I forget which cause it was now, but I was just mind blown with some of the play calls. I think it might have been when he went for the 2 points or something like this. I know that that kicker was after missing an extra point or something, but the play calling was kind of all over the place, and it's just 2 steps forward, 1 step back at the moment for Philadelphia. And I said it again. I hate to harp on about those power rankings, but I do think them out quite a bit. And all of a sudden, I have an eye on those Washington football team, because not that I think that they're a serious threat going forward, but Philadelphia's just been flip flopping. Washington has the better schedule going forward because Philadelphia is obviously in that first place or whatever. And yeah, look, it's an important game, obviously, for Philadelphia. They can get right against this completely depleted Dallas roster. But yeah, I mean, an ugly game this Sunday night.
Yeah, Mark, you absolutely read my mind. Is that I was watching those power rankings, and if you haven't watched them, people, get on your Twitter and check them out because they're beautiful. But I really feel like this division is going to come down to Philadelphia versus Washington. The Giants are just not ready to make that leap, and the Cowboys are trending towards a top 5 pick at this point. It's going to come down to those two teams, and which team gets to 6 or 7 wins first wins the division. And it should be a great garbage fire for whoever wins it. But I'm taking Philly on Sunday night, at least Sunday night for now, until it gets moved out.
Yeah, hopefully that game is struck down by a strange COVID bug, and they get to move it out, and we get a cracker on Sunday night like Seattle and Arizona the other day. But I suppose if I want to bring it forward, maybe we'll go with another straightforward one, really. Kansas City versus the Jets. I don't think there's.
How did I know you were going to that one? How did I know?
I don't think the Jets are going to put the fear into Kansas City like they did Buffalo the other day. Yeah, look, we haven't touched. Oh, sorry, we did. We touched Denver earlier on in the show, so I can kind of acknowledge their game against Kansas City the other day. And on last week's show, we said, oh, they just have to show some development against Kansas City. And to me, that point is already null and void, because I realized you don't have to try and copy Kansas City. You need to, like, Kansas City themselves are evolving, like we saw the other day, 3 points that I've written down. Not the other day. We saw it against a couple of teams this year. The Vegas, obviously, was you have to milk the clock, is what we said going into the Patriots game. You don't punt and you don't go for it on 4th down. Well, Patrick Mahomes was in that game for 10 minutes in the second quarter the other day. And the Chiefs got a kickoff return and a pick 6. So it's like, even when he's off the field, even though you're doing all the things correctly to not give Patrick Mahomes the ball, that team went and put 14 points up in that 10-minute spell, which is absolutely ridiculous. Denver played well. They kept Kansas City for 0-3 or 0-8 on 3rd downs, and they got to Mahomes 3 times, but it just shows like they're phenomenal, like the Chiefs. And I know it's not showing up, but like we've seen them do it in multiple ways. The double-digit win against New England, they had to kick the field goal against the Chargers. They had the fancy win against, like Mahomes going off fireworks against the Ravens, 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. We saw them rush the ball 46 times against Buffalo. We've seen them change it up. And that just should put the fear into every team that they're not just doing it because of Mahomes fireworks. They're doing it because they're super well-rounded. And it was something that was posed to me on Twitter the other day, and I'm going to come back to this later on with another game. But I was asked kind of why is Kansas City still top of my power rankings? And it's because, like, on their best day, you don't know what version of them that you're going to get, but you should fear it nonetheless, because they can throw anything at you. And even when you play well, they've evolved past that and they're onto something new.
Amen to that. It's a literal pick your poison with that team. Like, okay, do you want to dive through the air? Or do you want to dive by the ground? Like, your choice. Either way, you're about to give up 30 points to them. Like, it's ridiculous. It really is.
So I think to keep it nice and simple, I'm going to go for the Kansas City Chiefs. And
I can't believe it. I did not see that one coming at all. I will go out on a limb as well and take the Chiefs, calling the upset.
You can feel free to lock that one in. It would be just as mind-blowing as your Giants one.
Oh, no.
Oh, you've used up your lock, I suppose. Sorry, Hayden.
Damn it.
But no, nice simple one. I don't see the Jets coming out and threatening Kansas City, as I said at the top. So yeah, absolutely, Kansas City win. If you want to go further on this one, you said that you take Philadelphia by plus 28 points. The
Yes.
biggest points differential I've seen all year
Hmm.
from the bookies has been given to us in this game.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to have a guess? So our highest this year has been 13 and a half points.
Yes, correct.
So do you want to have a guess what they've set the bar at for this game, Jets versus Chiefs?
Let me hang on one second. I'm not Googling it. I'm just scrolling down on my notes because I wanted to see something. It's in Kansas City. So I'm gonna say they put it at 11 and a half.
Oh, you went the wrong way, Dave. This is a 19 and a half point
Holy
game.
are you serious?
That's almost a three touchdown game. What they're expecting Butker to keep up his trend of missing like a kick, and it kind of puts them back towards a 19 and a half points. That is absolutely outrageous. You don't touch that. There's no way. There's gonna be that if it's 19 and a half points, Chad Henne is in there from the second quarter. You know what I'm saying?
Chad Henne's
Right?
in there and he's still putting up points, but I've never
True.
seen 19 and a half on a game before. I've never seen that.
I think maybe it was a misprice or something. Maybe it's supposed to be 9.5, which would be closer to your 11.5. But it certainly, yeah, it made my jaw drop. About the only thing in this game that'd be surprising,
We're more surprised at the betting line than the actual game, but
right?
God,
You have to get your enjoyment from somewhere, you know.
for reals. Okay, so that's the non-surprising Kansas City and New York Jets game. And Mark, I want to go to a team that we've mentioned a couple times throughout today's show. I'm talking the 3-3 Las Vegas Raiders going to Cleveland to take on the 5-2 Browns. And Mark, I don't know if you're sick of this talking point throughout the week. I'm starting to get a little sick of it because I hear everybody and their great grandmother talking about it. Are the Browns going to be better without OBJ on the field? Literally everybody is leading with that question. And I think it's a little toxic to get out there and say that to immediately after the guy tore his ACL this past Sunday and he's out for the year. He is still arguably their best wide receiver. I don't think there's any question about that, but the way people are just circling like vultures to scream this question has just felt so wrong to me. And I mean, sure, Baker started 0-5 and he looked really bad when OBJ was on the field, and then he got hurt, and then he had arguably his best performance of his young career, throwing 5 touchdowns, didn't throw a incompletion. I know he had the spike, and they're counting that as an incompletion. I'm not. He was basically perfect when OBJ wasn't on the field. I get that, people, but like, give the Browns some space. They literally just lost OBJ for the year. Give them some space. I think this Cleveland team is still very talented even without OBJ. I know the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit, though. You know, Chubb is still out. He's only a couple weeks away from returning. OBJ is now out for the year. Arguably, the two best players on offense are now suddenly gone for a while. Is not ideal for any team, but I think the Browns can still really rally. And here's why I think that. Nick Chubb got hurt, what was it, week 3, week 4? And the Browns currently, since Chubb got hurt, are one of only two teams, Mark, two teams in the National Football League that have rushed for 1,000 yards so far in this season. The first team is Mark's Arizona Cardinals, who have a bye week. The second team is the Browns. They are still getting the job done with the rushing game, even without Chubb. Kareem Hunt's putting in work. Dearness Johnson's playing well. And now that Odell is out, I think an emphasis on Kevin Stefanski, if I can learn to talk, Kevin Stefanski's run game will be paramount in this game. And I think their offense is going to come in and do just fine. Of course, they're going to miss a beat with OBJ not out there, but this Raiders defense is just not good enough to really keep their team in it. I feel like the Raiders offense is fine. It's just that this defense is not good, like at all. And we've seen that in the game against New England, and now last week when they played the Bucks, they're 31st in points per game, giving up 32.8. And this Raiders offense basically needs to win shootouts in order to keep them in it. And their offense just isn't built to do shootouts. So I feel like even though OBJ is gone, the Browns will be fine, and I'm taking them to win this game.
Yeah, it's such a typical John Gruden steps in and wins this thing game because, you know, Cleveland Brown is like right at their level, Vegas' level, I mean. And, you know, they're hurting right now, and it's just such a typical John Gruden job, punch him in the mouth and all this kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
That, yeah, I really like your points about Cleveland. Again, like It's not that they haven't been proving it without Chubb. Like he's been gone for a few weeks and they have filled that hole. And it's kind of been documented now this week about how Baker Mayfield's numbers surprisingly go up when Odell is off the field for any period. And yeah, look, he's coming off his best game. So you can imagine. And you know what? The other thing for Baker, and it's worth mentioning, is like he was under a serious pressure going into that game as well. Like I know that we went into it and I said, oh, if this was before the Steelers game, we have them beaten Cincinnati hands down. It's only because they have a bit of adversity now that everyone's pointing fingers and saying that he's not good enough. But still, look, that would have put him under pressure, and he came out and he had that game after a slow start. So, look, that point says to me that Cleveland has sparked a bit of something, and they needed to, because some people are writing them off. But like again, I've mentioned to someone on Twitter recently how, yeah, Cleveland, I expect them to get to the playoffs, but you'd be worried about them because they got smoked against the Steelers and the Ravens already this year. That what kind of caliber are they at? So look, this year for some reason Vegas has been nominated as the AFC kind of like that threshold of not great but not a bad team. So Cleveland needs to be able to beat a team like that if they're going to have any kind of aspirations of looking good going down the stretch this year and into the playoffs. I'm going with Cleveland as well. But I don't think I've done upset alert in a while or maybe ever. But it's just such it's pitched perfectly now for John Gruden to go in there and upset them a little bit.
You had this hilarious, I don't think you meant it as a joke last week, but I took it as it because it was so funny. Literally, anytime you look away from the Raiders for more than 5 seconds, they're going to upset somebody. And I feel like if we look away for 5 seconds, they're going to upset the Browns. I really feel like that. But I'm taking the Browns to win in Cleveland. This should be a game where they roll handily. But I just worry about it because we know what the Raiders can do when we look away. We know what they can do. Those sneaky little pirate people.
It's like when they go in as the underdogs. They're just a good underdog team.
For real.
They pull it out of the going into the dog pound, I suppose. I don't know if it's that jinx them or whatever, but let's see. So I think we're both going with Cleveland in that one.
Yes.
You were mentioning there about Odell Beckham being out and how they can fill that void and stuff like that. But it's worth noting how the issue has been brought up again and again this week. So in a similar vein, I think it's worth giving New Orleans credit for how they're playing right now when they've only had Michael Thomas in for one game so far this year and he's been missing for the last 5. Like when you look at Michael Thomas's numbers this year, and I kind of say this knowing that Emmanuel Sanders was out on the weekend, Tren Armstead, the left tackle, was out. This time last year, in a record-breaking year, in like best wide receiver year of all time, you could say, Michael Thomas had 53 receptions, 632 yards. Right now, he's 3 receptions for 17 yards through this year. So, like, we were kind of, what's up with the Saints? I don't know why we were asking that because it was right in front of us. Michael Thomas was out. And they have guys stepping up right now. Like, all you have to do is Google New Orleans Saints and you're going to get a lot of, like, blog posts talking about how that was a vintage performance, that they looked like their old self, the Saints, and how Breeze takes a couple of games each year to warm up before he really gets it going. And he kind of got it going there on the weekend. Again, Carolina brought it back close in that game. So you'd be a bit worried, but at the same time, the Saints are getting healthy. They had Marcus Davenport, the defensive end, back the other day. I think he could be a bit of a missing piece for getting Cam Jordan, who's been a bit quiet this year, Sheldon Rankins, that D-line to start performing a bit better. They need to get better in the secondary as well. But if the offense can kind of start going, that was always their bread and butter for the Saints, was just beating teams by high scores. Breeze was fantastic the other day, and I hope it can continue now. I know we had our reservations, but especially against this Bears team that we need to see them tested. We got our answer the other day when it came up against a tough team like the Rams. They weren't able to hang with them at all. And yeah, I'm going with the New Orleans Saints in this and giving props to what they're able to do without Michael Thomas in the meantime.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Yeah, like Mark said, we were hesitant to anoint the Bears any praise that, yeah, their record is good, but we needed them to play a good team. And when, like Mark said, they went up against the Rams on Monday night, it did not go well. in the slightest. They just got thoroughly dominated on literally every side of the ball. Offense, defense, and special teams. You know how bad you got to be to get dominated on special teams? It's not a good showing. The Bears had a really rough night and they got pushed around. So this game is in Chicago, and I feel like they're going to come out with some extra oomph, trying to pound their chest and say, no, we're for real. We're not overrated like you guys have been saying. They're going to try a bit harder, if that makes sense. But I'm taking the Saints as well in this game. I feel like Monday night was the first example of Chicago getting exposed, and now we're seeing what they really are. Now here's another chance for them to show, no, we're for real in the Saints game, but I don't think it's going to go their way. I'm taking the Saints in this one.
I don't think you've given Chicago enough of a pass on a special teams unit for the Rams, including Johnny Hecker, that now has people talking about can a punter win MVP?
I think he should.
He had such a perfect performance, but no, absolutely. Look, we've been saying for weeks Chicago can win up against a tough team, and let's see can they do it against New Orleans as well. They are still hit or miss. I should say that, New Orleans, they need to show consistently. But I'm going New Orleans in this game.
Yeah. Everything you just laid out there. I literally had Johnny Hecker's the MVP in my notes. So, and I wrote that as a joke, not even knowing people were actually saying that. But why don't we go to one more game for me, Mark? That's a little bit straightforward. The 1-5 Minnesota Vikings, who have lost 2 in a row, coming out of their bye week, going to Green Bay to take on the 5-1 Packers. And man, Minnesota, you got your bye week to figure your things out. And if there was any hope of saving your season, any hope, it is literally hanging on by the tiniest of margins after you got flat out embarrassed by the Falcons.
It is worth noting, ladies and gentlemen, you made the shape with your finger there because this is now a video podcast.
Yeah,
so if you're listening to this through your ears, you can see it through your eyes. Hayden, I think you might have the details about that one.
Yeah, if you go to our YouTube channel, NFLandU /YouTube, I think if I threw out that URL correctly, you will get a video version of this podcast a couple days after the audio version comes out, and you will see all our beautiful faces as we make these terrible football picks. So please check it out.
And you can see how small the thread is with Minnesota. Sorry to interrupt you, Hayden. I'll give it back to you.
No, that was a beautiful plug. Thank you for that, because I forgot all about it. I'm talking razor thin margins, people. Even though I think it was Kyle Rudolph came out on Wednesday and said that he believes that the Vikings still have the talent to make a late season push and get into the postseason. Well, that's all fine and dandy. If your team was like, I don't know, 3-4, you're 1-5, man. This is put up or shut up time. You got to go out there and win this game. I know it's against Green Bay and I know it's on the road, but the Vikings need a win desperately in order to keep at least some tiny semblance of hope alive for their team. And they're playing against this Packers team. And Mark, I'm going to be honest with you. I think this Packers defense is a little flawed. I'm going to give the Vikings some hope, and they might think it's false hope, but I'm going to give them some hope in this one. I think this Packers defense is flawed. They've given up at least 34 or more points at least 3 times this season so far. They got tore up by Brady, and that's one thing we're not going to sit here and really bear down on them because they got tore up by Brady. It's starting to happen to every team now. But Deshaun Watson went in there and really put a number on him, and I know the score line doesn't really indicate that, but Watson had a pretty good game against that Packers defense. I think that they aren't as good as their record indicates they are. And the numbers don't back up that statement. All their numbers say that they're, a top 10 defense in almost every category. But I don't think they're as good as their numbers say they are. And with a fully healthy, hopefully now Dalvin Cook, who is, nursing that groin injury right before the bye, and with Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson hopefully playing well, I think the Vikings might at least have some kind of a chance in this one. But the Packers have arguably one of the best offenses in the entire league, averaging 32.5 points per game. And there was only one game this season where they didn't put up at least 28 points, and that was their lone loss to Tampa Bay. I think this one's going to get out of hand fast, and I'm taking the Packers to win in Green Bay.
You brought me back down to earth, and maybe some Vikings fans back down to earth quickly there. I thought that this was shaping up that you're going to pick the Vikings, which you were setting me on, because I was like, oh, same flaw that I seem to always pick the Falcons for, is that if the offense does get going, like, there's no stopping this team. It's just they haven't been able to get it done this year, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And they're just a team that you can't really account for. But what you can kind of see on paper is that connection with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, I think, is really worth pointing out. Devontae Adams had 196 yards the other day in Green Bay's game that Rodgers didn't even like have to account for that much of it. He this year is a third lowest depth of targets. So, the actual air yards that he has to put on the ball, but like the offense is still moving it for him. So we weren't, there's some intangibles that you can't really measure for Green Bay that they've just been able to. I suppose it's based it off a trio of running backs that they didn't even need Aaron Jones the other day to set up those 196 yards for Devontae Adams, that they're just able to get the ball moving. And it's the threat of Aaron Rodgers who can turn it on, but he's just able to get the ball to Devontae Adams, and Devontae Adams, whether it's breaking tackles or just running past guys or what, he's certainly playing phenomenally right now, and it sets up Green Bay going really well later on, or as we continue into the year. They bounced back so well after that loss to Tampa Bay. It was really impressive, and I just don't see the signs of life from Minnesota, even though their fans would want it in this division game. And it speaks to why I picked Detroit earlier on, that they could jump into that extra wild card spot, because I just think that Minnesota is just an absolute write-off right now. Yeah, that's all I can say. Green Bay is my pick.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, nothing really to say. I will say, though, this is the final note on this game. General manager for the Vikings, Rick Spielman, said about a week ago that they are not having a fire sale in Minnesota after they traded away Unique Ngakoue to the Baltimore Ravens. And I feel like that opinion might change if they get blown out 45-13 in this one. I feel like 1-6 might suddenly change that opinion.
I'm going to come back. I'll come back in there just because it was a point that I meant to say why I'm kind of out on them, is because they are like getting rid of pieces. Why they got rid of Yannick Ngakoue, I don't know. They traded for him from the Jaguars. You'd have imagined to build with him into the future. I know that their cap space and all could be an issue going forward, that Rick Spielman was able to kind of work some magic. And I mentioned this on a previous show that how fans were so impressed by that, but it was going to come out and bite them eventually, that they should have perhaps held on to Yannick Ngakoue, because what was the last team to do something like this? See out his time and then franchise tag him. Kansas City Chiefs there last year ended up getting a first and a second for Frank Clark when he went to. So why didn't they try and get some value versus whatever it was? What was it, a sixth or a third? I'm not sure exactly what.
It was like a mid or lower round pick for him. It wasn't a great return, to be honest with you.
They could have franchised them and then traded for better value, and they would have them for the rest of the year. It didn't make sense to me, that, and it just pointed to bad. It was just a bad sign for me for the Minnesota Vikings.
Hey, to be honest with you, that's what 1-win teams do, man. That's what 1-win teams do. Bad enough as it is. All right, so that's the Minnesota Green Bay game. Mark, which of your, I think it's 2 remaining games, would you like to go to next, as I fix the light by my feet?
God, I don't know if I'm going to be kind to our listeners or not, give them the game that we're all wanting to, that I have on my sheet. But I suppose I'm going to quickly jump in with another quick one just to get it out of the way. Tennessee at Cincinnati. Tennessee, having suffered their first loss the other day, did it in better fashion than I thought they would have. I thought that the Steelers really could have put a number up against them, and Tennessee, didn't get off to the greatest start, but showed some great signs that they didn't drop too far in power rankings and stuff like that, because they were able to show they're an elite team. Meanwhile, the Bengals are such a mixed bag. I mean, like, their defense cannot get any pressure at all. They've had 1 sack and I think 72 passing attempts, which is just not good. And they can't even fix it because they just got rid of Dunlap. They traded him this week. Their defensive end, Carlos Dunlap, that is, who I think Chance had said was going to be up for an All-Pro this year, which shocked me at the time. But they can't even bring up more guys, because in the secondary you have LaShawn Sims and Darius Phillips, their cornerbacks, they're struggling. So it's not like you can add someone into the box to come and put some pressure on. The offensive line, I read, is Michael Jordan, the left guard, is the lone day one starter that they have remaining. And we've talked in depth about how Joe Burrow is getting sacked and it could be dangerous going forward for him. But then at the same time, he is good because he's on pace to absolutely smash Andrew Luck's rookie passing record by 250 yards, no less, which is huge. He's on pace right now, Joe Burrow, to get 4,624 yards.
Oh, nice.
So whatever percent 250 is over that, it's kind of high enough that it kind of makes your jaw drop. That there's obviously been signs and people are excited watching Joe Burrow, and fans of Cincinnati, there's definitely a future there. But they're just such a mixed bag right now that it is just keep on experimenting and getting meaningful reps for that team, because obviously this year they're not going anywhere. And I don't know if there's people fearing for their jobs on the defensive side or what. Again, that was a tough position to fill at the beginning. No one wanted to be the defensive coordinator last year when Zach Taylor came in. That Tennessee, it should be another tune-up game for them. I don't think that, even though like Cincinnati has been showing up and giving performances that you wouldn't expect, but like when the going got tough, I suppose you could point to Philadelphia. They ended up with the draw. I just think Tennessee needs to get back on track and pick up another win. It'd be a very shocking loss if they lost to Cincinnati this week.
Amen to that. Like Mark said, I was also very impressed that, Tennessee clawed back and gave Pittsburgh a scare. It looked like that game was starting to get out of hand, but they got back in there. They show that they're tougher than maybe I thought they were as well. But this Cincinnati team it's ripe for the picking, basically. Like Mark mentioned, Joe Burrow's been sacked 28 times so far, most by any quarterback by at least 4. And I'm honestly going to predict this one. I think Jadeveon Clowney finally gets his first sack of the season for the Titans. I'm going to go out on a limb for that one. Hasn't got one so far yet, but he's going to get it this Sunday. And I'll take the Titans to win as well. This should be, like Mark said, get right for him. Should be easy pickings. Hopefully, maybe. We'll see.
Anytime we go for an easy game and just kind of write it off, because our record and those aren't good. If anything, we kind of have like lock some of those games up, because we've just completely written them off, and then we've had a loss in them. So
I'm pretty sure we have losing records in those games, to be brutally honest with you.
The Denver New England one just stands out like a sore thumb to me. I'm like,
oh god, yeah, I'm still mad about that.
Yeah.
We were so confident. We said, "Oh, we already talked about that. Let's move on." Like, no, we were wrong.
Shows that what we know. An hour into this podcast, we're letting people know that our takes are not the smartest.
Listen, we like to give the best takes that we can, and sometimes we're wrong, and that's okay. But
I have a feeling we're wrong.
I have a feeling we're going to be right on the Cincinnati game. I'm taking the Titans as well.
I hope so. Yeah, Tennessee for me too.
All right, Mark. I have one game left, and it's quite a doozy as I get to take a dip into your little pond, to the NFC West, because the 4-3 San Francisco 49ers, who have suddenly won 2 in a row and suddenly look like the 49ers from last season, despite the plethora of injuries, are going to Seattle to take on the now 5-1, no longer undefeated Seahawks. And man, that bad defense and playing close games finally bit Seattle in the ass, huh? And as Mark just sits there, it soaks it all in. Just, oh yeah, my team did that to him. My team did that to him.
And I soak it in that I called it, most importantly.
He did. He called it. That's why I called him the happiest Cardinals fan in the world earlier. He called his team's shot. Anywho, this is a great matchup for both of these teams right now. Listen, we've talked to death about the 49ers injuries on the show almost every week, and I'm not going to do that now. They have more, but it doesn't seem to hold them back whatsoever. But the Seattle Seahawks injuries are starting to pile up. Chris Carson is now the latest guy to suffer an injury, got a mild foot strain. He could miss some extended time for the Seahawks. That's something to keep an eye on, but their offense is basically predicated now on Russell Wilson just doing magic almost every single drive and, throwing for close to 350 and 4 touchdowns a game. So I don't think their offense is going to be changed too much if Chris Carson isn't there. They're going to be relying on guys like Travis Homer to fill the void, but their offense should be fine. I do want to point out, though, that this 49er team over the last 2 weeks, they've been dominant. That win against the Rams was a lot more lopsided than the scoreline indicates. And then they just beat the blue hell out of the Patriots last week. The last 2 weeks, 49ers have won a combined 57-22. That's the point differential in those games. 57-22 in the last 2 weeks. They are blowing teams the hell out. Now, I'm not going to get on here and, pound my chest and say, oh, San Francisco's for sure winning this game in Seattle. I ain't doing that one bit. These two teams played twice last year, as we all know, and two very classic, two great game of the year contenders. Grand total of point differential in those two wins for the 49ers, 8 points total. They came down to the wire each time, and I have a feeling this game is going to be the exact same. But Mark, I got a nugget for you on this one. Here's my golden nugget. In the past 10 times, the San Francisco 49ers, I'm sorry, past 11 times, if I can learn how to count. The past 11 times the San Francisco 49ers have gone to Seattle to play a game, their record there is 2-9. They have not won in Seattle very often the last decade or so. In fact, before last season, before that final game of the season, where San Francisco stopped them on the goal line and they won their division, that was the first time that San Francisco had won in Seattle since 2011. They don't go in there and win very often. It's more of a rarity when they do. And because of that, I'm going to take the Seahawks to win this game. Even though the San Francisco Niners are really impressing me, and only an idiot would say that they would get swept over their next 7 games, I'm taking the Seahawks to win.
I love how we have a running joke that I hope people haven't listened to understand what happened there.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, it's one as an NFC West supporting fan that I can sit back and enjoy, because suddenly San Francisco is competitive when I thought that they were done for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, I know it's come up the last few episodes about like division teams going into an opponent's territory, and some teams are good at doing it, some teams are bad at doing it. I just think all bets are off with this game. The way that San Francisco is suddenly playing and the wins that it has, and Seattle reeling off the back of a loss. I think watching the Cardinals play them the other day, it's like whatever we previewed last week went out the window. They don't need a good defense, clearly. They just need to be okay, because Russell Wilson's going to get it done. Like, getting to watch it on Sunday Night Football when they have all the camera angles and seeing him slotted into the likes of Tyler Lockett, and yeah, he was an absolute magician the other day. So the addition of Carlos Dunlap to help a non-existent pass rush, because it was outrageous how much time both quarterbacks had. It was in overtime before the sack was recorded.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, the offensive lines are built right for the two teams at the moment, surprisingly. But they had no pass rush, and that is an area that needed to be addressed, and they're doing well to address it. I know Carlos Dunlap is kind of like whatever 30 or 31 at this point, but he still is a good player, don't get me wrong, and it's only 31, that's not old. Like Chandler Jones and all these are the same age. But yeah, I think it sets up for a hugely intriguing game, and it's interesting. We're talking there about perhaps the Sunday night game would get flexed. This is all the potential to be that game that you would put in, except for Seattle played. And I think our next game that we're going to finish on would be the game. We have Pittsburgh coming up afterwards against Baltimore, and it kind of makes me think, oh, is the reason they flexed Seattle, Arizona last week because they need to put Pittsburgh on this week. So by deduction, that means that this game can't be put into Sunday football. But I think it's deserving and interesting enough all of a sudden that it could end up there. That Kyle Shannon, again, I think this is going to be a point that I'm making each week now, because the talent has been depleted for San Francisco, yet they're still able to the coaching is phenomenal, and they could be able to put it up against a team like Seattle. And this puts crazy shockwaves into the division. If the 49ers win, you'd have the Cardinals, Seattle, because the Cardinals on a bye, you'd have the Cardinals, Seattle, the 49ers all on 5 wins. You'll have the Rams then, if they beat Miami, on 6 wins, which, my God, to be what week 8 and you have all your teams in the win column, I mean, they're all going to be above 500 anyway. Even if San Francisco loses, they're still going to be 4-4. But it's phenomenally competitive. And yeah, I hope it's a good game now, and that Seattle don't just get to coast it. Not that they deserve to just coast it or anything like that, but I hope that they don't just turn on, because it sets up to be a fascinating game.
Listen, the Seattle Seahawks don't know how to play a normal game, Mark. It's guaranteed to be bananas in the fourth quarter. It's a guarantee. And that's the only reason I don't want it on Sunday Night Football, because we sat here with Seahawks and Cardinals last week, and I was so jazzed at the end of that game, I literally could not fall asleep for another 4 hours. And I can't imagine what you went through, but I need some normalcy after Sunday Night Football ends. I'm just
It
saying.
was it was nuts after Sunday football. I guess that game ended our time like 4:30.
Oh,
We
jeez.
daylight savings come into effect, so it was kind of I gained an hour, and I still ended up going to bed at 6 o'clock that night. I went and watched the last however long of the games, kind of like the last 5 minutes back
Mm-hmm.
and into overtime. That yeah, I just couldn't stop reading. I was just on Twitter scrolling. It was any bit. I went and I was waiting for the NFL to upload the episode. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was a lot of fun watching that on Sunday Night Football. But like I said earlier on, keep the Cardinals off Sunday Night Football. Don't like waiting around until those hours to get my fix of Arizona.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Well, the bad news is, Mark, you mentioned you don't like waiting around for Sunday Night Football, and as we just picked this game. Wait, did you give your pick for this?
Yeah, Seattle.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know why my brain farted on that one. It looks like that the game of the week that everybody's going to be looking forward to is more than likely going to be flexed to Sunday Night Football, so you're going to have to wait for it. Mark, why don't you tell us about the 6-0 Pittsburgh Steelers going to Baltimore to take on the 5-1 Ravens? Game of the
Well,
week.
thanks for asking, Hayden. Right, this is going to be kind of numbers based, but I was asked by someone on Twitter the other day, kind
Mm-hmm.
of about Baltimore, and I think the numbers will actually paint a picture. So this team doesn't look like it does from last year, and there's a lot of bad to go with that. So to start with some good, they're averaging 29.8 points a game, which is eighth in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But they're 31st in passing per game. They're 27 in total yards. They're 19th with for their yards per play, and ninth highest percent of 3 out and outs, which doesn't speak to that high powered offense that was going last year. To bring it to Lamar specifically, he's 25th in completion percentage. He's 23rd in yards per completion. There's been few explosive plays
Mm-hmm.
it was a highlight reel after highlight reel was being produced last year by the Baltimore Ravens. We haven't seen that. And I don't think we've seen it since Tennessee gave a blueprint to defend the run game and make Lamar Jackson pass the ball.
Mm-hmm.
The team is possessing the ball for 6 fewer minutes this year than that last year. And that's partly because the run game isn't going as much and they're not sustaining those drives. They're having, they're getting off the field, I suppose, in a bad sense. It might be to do with them preserving Lamar Jackson. He's rushing 3 fewer times per game, and that's bound to affect you because his runs were so powerful last year. To flip it back to some good look, the defense is it's first in points allowed, ninth in yards per game. The offense's rushing is number one, but surprisingly, they're 43 yards per game fewer than they were this time last year. So it's not bad. It's just they don't have those explosive plays. Is the problem. So they're not putting up the fantasy numbers and stuff like that. But that's not to say that they're a bad team yet. Teams know how to attack them now and to defend against them. I think that those numbers there are because, like the issue always was, can Lamar throw the ball? And maybe we are seeing that now, that teams are forcing them. And that was what they focused on all offseason was, can Lamar Jackson, and he himself was focusing on that, throwing deep balls and stuff like that. That, Mark Andrews, the tight end, I think must be their highest scoring fantasy option right now, because you have all the chopping and changing by committee running backfield. That Mark Andrews is the kind of the more shallow depth target. So I just think, they look different right now. And that's why I don't have them at the top of my power rankings. But I'm not going to put them any lower because, it's hardball. Like, they exploded onto the scene last year. You can't compare to that. They broke so many records. They were 14-2. So of course they regressed. You aren't going to meet those numbers again. And it has surprised us. Those numbers are shocking. They're not the MVP level that we thought that Lamar was going to have. But it's not reason to panic. They still go into this Pittsburgh game 3.5-point favorites against a team that's still undefeated and is atop of a lot of power rankings right now. That I don't know who you're going with, Hayden, but I'm just playing it smart, and I'm saying Baltimore still has enough in it that it's going to come out of this game and win it.
listen, I don't think there's a wrong way to pick this game. I feel like you can legitimately make an argument for either one of these teams. But when you sat there and listed off all those numbers, it goes perfectly with this question that I wanted to ask you for this game is that ever since that Kansas City loss, doesn't it feel like Baltimore, at least to me, doesn't it feel like they've just been flying under the radar a bit? I know they've played at some lesser teams, like they got the Cincinnati Bengals in there. I think they played Washington too as well. They're not exactly, playing other good teams, so maybe people aren't paying attention to them. But as you sit there and listed off those numbers that, okay, yeah, we all knew they were going to regress, but maybe not to that extent of regression. Doesn't it feel like they've just been a little too quiet these last couple of weeks, the Ravens?
Well, how we have been dealing with them and why I wanted to actually spend some time with them this week is because we did say, oh, they lost to Kansas City. Now we just have to wait until they come up against another good team because we're just going to have to watch them beat off and, go off on lesser teams and stuff, So now's the time. They're coming up against Pittsburgh and they are a quality team. They are a bad matchup with that good defense. Like, are you suddenly going to start having your explosive plays back? It's hard to say. So I'm actually surprised that Pittsburgh isn't the favorite in this game. It kind of speaks to the legacy that Baltimore's offense has from last year. So maybe you shouldn't be trusting that. But again, we expect the regression. It's been more phenomenal than we kind of thought it would be. They weren't able to see it the likes of the Eagles in that game. Like the Eagles kind of could have gone and won that. So maybe we should be a bit more cautious when we're talking about Baltimore, not just say and give them an automatic W just because they're not playing a top 5 in power rankings team. So yeah, it's definitely worrying. But I think that this is where Baltimore, this is the kind of game that we've been anticipating that they step up for. These are the kinds of games that they show up for. And especially in the division that they were supposed to win easy, and all of a sudden Pittsburgh won't go away because Big Ben hasn't been injured like he was last year. That I think it's fascinating. And yeah, I'm again going with Baltimore. I don't know, does that answer your question? I think that we ourselves fell for that trap of not paying them enough attention, and we kind of let these numbers slide under the radar. But I just think that these numbers are also there because I don't know, maybe they're not motivated or something. Their defense is still phenomenal, Their defense is still, again, first in points allowed, 9th in yards per game. So they're definitely going to mask. And again, everyone looks at a box score at the end of the weekend, and Baltimore has gone into the wins column. So
it's weird because I've gone a little back and forth on this one. I feel like the Steelers are going to come in extra motivated because they got swept by Baltimore last year because Big Ben didn't play in either of those games. So, of course, they got swept. They didn't have a quarterback, for Christ's sake. But, God, I don't think it's an upset either way if either team wins, to be honest with you. I both think they're really that good. And if, like I said, if people really think the Ravens are flying under the radar, like I just asked Mark, this is the perfect thump your chest moment to come out and say, we're for real. We're just as good as we were last year, and we just knocked off the undefeated Steelers. That being said, I'm taking the Steelers to win in Baltimore.
Oh, excellent. Again, there's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
I previewed next week's I previewed next week's power rankings by saying, does a win here get you to the top? I just don't see it being an absolute blowout of a game because they're so good. So yeah, if one of these teams blows out the other, that's the surprise to me.
Oh, yeah.
It should definitely be close. And it's one of those games that we often talk about that a loss isn't a bad thing. Yeah, it's bad in terms of playoff seeding and stuff like that. But you can't win them all. And yeah, it might be on Baltimore's shoulder now that, we did have the 14-2, and that would be the best that we can do if we lose this weekend. But, and still Pittsburgh a second round to go, but you do lose games. I probably have sided with Baltimore because they're at home. And again, if you're thinking that they're going to split the season,
but this would be the time to do it. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's definitely a tough game to pick. Like, you wouldn't blame anyone for picking either one. Like, even a non-fan can be right for picking either of these teams, because it makes sense. That look, I'm far more excited about this game than I was Tennessee Pittsburgh going into this. Like, this is come playoffs. If we get this matchup, we'll be dreaming of it. We'll be saying, I hope the Bills don't knock off the Baltimore in an upset because they'll be able to. This is the kind of game that we're going to be looking for later on in the year. I know it's a division game. We're going to get it again anyway, but it's a great matchup. And I I've weird feelings towards Pittsburgh right now, and it's like I want them to be good because with the New England Patriots regressing, there's always those teams in the AFC that are just powerhouses, and it's nice when you have Pittsburgh as a powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I want to see Lamar and stuff come out and give us what we're all itching to see again, and
Right.
that's the fireworks. And I don't know, it could be a cracker of a game, could also be a dud. I feel like these games often are when you look forward to them as much as we're looking forward to this one. But yeah, like I said, sticking with Baltimore, and I'm glad we have a split on this one because I think it's a really important game for the weekend.
I swear to God, if this is a dud, I might actually cry because I have been looking forward to this one for at least 2 weeks at this point. And this should be a good game. I think it was Big Ben who came out with the quote this week that said, "This is the kind of game that you wish your bye week was after because it's just that physical and hard nosed." It should be a fun one Sunday. And I'm also glad we're splitting. I think that shows how close and how good we both think these two teams are, but you can't go wrong with either one. It should be a fun one.
This isn't one of those picks that we have where it's like, oh, they're kind of unknowns and it's someone can show up on a given day. No, this is big time football.
Yeah. This is what we dream of. I wasn't joking. This is game of the week. And if you ain't watching this, you don't like football. I'm just going to come out and say that.
Do you know what? I wasn't even going to tease people by putting this game at the end of the show. I have actually marked it that it was going to be the fifth one that I dealt with, but the way that we transitioned kind of brought me off somewhere else. I
was sitting there waiting. I was like, is he really going to hold out that one for the end? Is he really going to do it?
We're such clickbaiters. We might put out a promo of this one and someone's going to be like, I thought they were going to talk about that Baltimore game. I listened to the promo. They definitely talk about it. Where is it?
I can't complain. I mean, I did Seattle, San Francisco last, so I can't complain. All right, so that's it for our Week 8 preview show. A lot of really good games. Should be a ton of fun to sit back and watch this Sunday. Mark, thank you for joining us. Any final thoughts for this great Week 8 that we're about to walk into?
No, Cardinals are on a bye, so I'm able to sit back and enjoy all the madness that unfolds. And yeah, again, a great side of games. I need to count up after we end the show how many kind of different picks that we had, but there's a few in there. Last week we matched our record with 5 differences. I feel like this week we've probably matched it again. So yeah, after going 11-3 last week, one of us will surely be giving that up this week.
I'll watch it all hinge on the Atlanta game. Watch it all hinge on that.
Oh my God.
All right. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week. And hope you all enjoy Week 8. Bye.